Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your hosts, Nicole and Steve, and we have got a really technical, scientific, bit of a nerdy one.
Yeah.
And it's called cell danger response. Now, my first question to you is, did you just make that up?
No, I didn't make that up, but maybe I could have. No, I didn't make it up. It's a really interesting topic, actually. So it's a little bit sciencey, yes, but I like the topic because it can explain a few things about people who maybe get a little bit stuck in chronic conditions, don't get better, that sort of thing. So we can explain possibly the mechanisms of why that is.
Chronic conditions. I've got a stat on chronic conditions that is from a cell danger response. And this actually blew me away. In the 1980s, 5 to 10% of children live with a chronic disease, right? And as of 2018, 40% of children and 50% of teens and 60% of adults under the age of 65 live with chronic disease, and over 65, 90%.
That's crazy.
So I mean, chronic diseases, everyone will say, oh yeah, because you're getting older and everyone's we're getting old, but they stratify for kids.
40% of children and 50% of teens.
Yeah.
So half of the teenage population has a chronic disease.
A chronic disease.
That's scary.
I know people go, oh, where did you make that number up? No, it's from Mitochondrion. And the title is Cell Danger Response Biology, the new science that connects environmental health with mitochondria and the rising tide of chronic illness. So that's the paper. I mean, it's published in Mitochondria 2020. So I'm not just making those figures up. What do they say? 80% of stats are made up on the spot.
Yeah.
There's a famous joke about that. 83% of people think I'm bad at maths, but the other 30% don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only stat joke I know. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
Good job, Steve.
So, all right. Look, we've talked about cell danger response. Can you define what cell danger response is?
Yeah. So the whole cell danger response was kind of discovered by a doctor called Dr. Robert Naviaux.
Naviaux, yeah.
And he runs the Mitochondrial and Metabolic Disease Center at the University of California.
Is that all?
That's all.
Jeez.
So he first introduced this concept in an article in the Mitochondrion in 2013, the journal.
We love that journal. We've got a few of them today.
We have got a few journals, yes.
Most of them are from
papers from that
Mitochondrion.
journal. We do have quite a few, actually. So he sort of came up with this concept. So the cell danger response is the evolutionary conserved metabolic response that protects cells and hosts from harm.
Right.
It's triggered by encounters with chemical, physical, biological, and I'm also adding emotional.
You've updated it. Yeah, I like that.
I've updated it. That's my addition. Threats that exceed the cellular capacity for homeostasis, so for the body to maintain, balance. This response is activated when a cell encounters a threat that could injure or kill it.
Exactly. So let's just take an example. I'm drinking water with product in it, and it's got minerals in it, just magnesium, loads of magnesium. So I'm drinking that, loads of magnesium. My body can adapt to that. It loves it. Excessive magnesium can be weed out. Excessive water can be weed out. So that's a normal response of homeostasis. It's making me. But if I went too much or I had something very toxic in there and it overwhelmed my normal mechanisms, this would be termed the cell danger response.
That's right. Which
is incredibly triggering, and there's loads of triggers for this. So what are some of the triggers for we'll call it the CDR.
Yeah, we'll call it CDR just for ease. So some of the triggers can be pathogens. Right. So viruses, fungi, parasites, bacterial infections, things
all
like
the
that.
infections as well. We'll stop there.
Infections.
So a classic example of that is a couple of weeks ago, one of the guys who worked here had a terrible flu. Okay, and he had influenza and he had a fever, and it obviously overwhelmed his body. He had to time off work. He was extraordinarily sick, and so that's when you're overwhelmed. Yet I spoke to someone else in marketing today who's got a sniffle, and so she's just fine and carrying on with life. And she's a woman, so she's much tougher than the guy who was sick. There is such thing as a man flu because women have better immune responses than men because you got 2 X chromosomes. You're a lucky duck.
Oh yeah. So
I've only got 1.
I know. Yeah, I can tell.
You can tell.
It shows, Steve.
Of course it shows because I've got a Y chromosome.
That's right.
Which tells you I'm a man. This sort of stuff. But absolutely. So these funguses, so again, there's different scales. You know, I had COVID a few weeks ago, and I was okay. You know, no problems at all. So I was maintaining response because I was taking some terrible, yucky tasting andrographis.
You were.
So I was fine with that. But as I said, overwhelmed him, and he went down and got very sick, and he's fine now. But so he's back in that sort of thing. So that's what we're talking about. So it's not all of them will do this to you. It's the severe ones.
It's the severe ones, yeah. So viruses, you know, Candida overgrowth can do it. You know, Candida, you know, obviously parasitic infections, and you know, gut bacterial infections and things like that. That can be enough to do it as well, particularly if they're producing lipopolysaccharides, which we've talked about. So that's enough that can trigger this cell danger response.
Yep.
So chemicals is another trigger.
All right. What's up? What chemicals? What examples?
Or pesticides, drugs.
Yep.
You know, like BPA, what they call forever chemicals and things like that. So all of those types of things can definitely have an impact. Heavy metals is another one. So nickel, cadmium, arsenic,
Mercury.
lead, mercury, all of those types of things.
Now, again, we've got a slight tolerance to those. We can tolerate small amounts of those because they're in nature everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, those heavy metals are made in the universe. They're not made by man.
No.
They're made out of a supernova explosion, which forms the Earth and that sort of thing. And so we've got these heavy metals. Some of the heavier metals are good for us, like iron. We need it. But, you know,
Zinc,
mercury, zinc's fairly heavy. Number 26, I think, on the periodic table. Wish I remember all this stuff. I know mercury's about 80 on the periodic table. It's 80, gold 79. So those heavier metals up there can be quite toxic for us. But we can tolerate small amounts.
But I mean, you know, people say, well, heavy metals, how am I going to be exposed to heavy metals? Well, we've talked about that. They're in the soils. Even if you're eating a lot of rice. So rice contains some arsenic.
No,
so
nice.
You're getting if you eat a lot of rice.
And it's brown rice too,
and brown
out
rice
of husks.
Specifically, yeah. So you know, we're all exposed to a little bit of heavy metals, so and some more than others. And also we have to remember that if our detoxification pathways aren't working overly well, then we're going to get a build-up of these metals, and obviously then that causes a problem. So heavy metals is another trigger for the cell danger response. EMFs and blue light.
Electromotive frequencies,
so it can be controversial, I suppose.
Well, it can, and the higher the frequency, the more toxic radiation is. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about phones and radiation, but they do emit radiation. They're they're in the 6 to 30 gigahertz, which is a very high frequency. Usually anything over light, anything higher frequency than light, like ultraviolet light, and those X-rays and those sort of things are quite toxic for us. The lower radiation, like the FM radios and the two-way radios, are down a bit lower, so they're a bit safer. But yeah, there's certain radiations are going everywhere. And I mean, you know, it's very controversial, the phone, but we can't ignore the fact they give off radiation.
That's right.
So that's good.
So that can be part of it too.
What other things can
so
screw with
physical things, so heat, you know, heat exposure, UV, like overexposure to UV, radiation from the UV, that type of thing. So it's a lesser trigger, but it can be for some people. Inhaled biotoxins. So this one's really actually common.
I better not breathe anymore.
I know.
You see, this is a good point. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And, you know, people have heard of mold infection.
Yep.
So that's what we're talking about with mycotoxins. So there's mold spores.
Yep.
I mean, it's not it's quite a common thing. And, you know, in this country, we've had a lot of flooding over the last few years. We've had a lot of mold issues. And that can be a significant factor for this trigger. And I've seen it quite a lot in clinic as well. People who just have mold infections cannot get better.
No.
For years and years, they're still struggling with these issues. So molds, any volatile, compounds, vaporized chemicals, even, you know, new carpets and new sofas and paints and all that sort of thing, they can all, have fumes and these inhaled biotoxins. So that's kind of everywhere as well.
Well, it's not just everywhere. It's in this room. We've got fairly new carpet and fairly new paint.
That's right, we do. And funnily enough, I always get a funny throat when I come in the podcast
room.
You do? I always have to clear my throat when I come in here. Yeah, I don't know why. Oh, well, maybe this is why. I have my other theories. Well, we won't say that on camera.
Just thought you looking at me all afternoon, you know. It's like,
that's what it is, Steve.
That makes you hot and sweaty. And
or does it just make my throat hurt? No, I'm kidding.
Not the oil painting I once was or never was, okay. But isn't that incredible? That and even photocopiers, because photocopiers give off ozone.
Yeah, dry cleaning. People that get their clothes dry cleaned all the time. I know people who only get their clothes dry cleaned.
Really?
Yeah, can be quite toxic.
I have never had anything dry cleaned in about 10 years.
No, I haven't either. I've never ever had anything dry cleaned. I'm not into that. I just wash it.
Yeah,
See
I
what
just wash
happens.
it. Yeah, I just wash it. And I know, look, even, and the detergent, I used to formulate detergents like Radiant Liquid, and that's got some toxic stuff in it. I mean, you got to remember back then when I was a chemist, this was, we were exposed to all sorts, we were so sick all the time.
I know, right?
And it was probably this thing, it's probably CDR, you know, because I was just like living in a lab.
Yeah.
Like for 8 hours a day, I was in a laboratory.
Yeah.
And we were just sucking up whatever was coming out of the fumes and that sort of thing. It was, and you know, that's obviously extreme, but there's a lot of people who work in labs and work around chemicals all the time.
Yeah, definitely. You know, if you're getting in, we don't want to scare people, obviously, but new homes with new carpets, new paint, new materials, new everything. I mean, there can be a lot in that too. And for people who are sensitive, that can be a factor.
If my wife's listening right now, we are getting new carpet at home.
Oh, no.
I know. No, man, be worried about this because, you know, they've got to glue it down and all this sort of stuff too.
Yeah, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, if you can do without carpet, I mean, in this, where we live, it's okay because it's warm, so you don't necessarily need carpet.
But Beck and I are shit in the cold. We really
See, I
hate.
have tiles in our house.
I've got tiles downstairs, but upstairs is carpet.
We've just got carpet in the bedroom, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
Geez, so you're sleeping in 8 hours of carpets.
Yeah, so that could be. And this is the one that I added because I see this a lot.
Yep.
Is so lifestyle, emotional, physical stress, definitely psychological stress, lack of sleep, poor nutrition, but emotional stress I find can be a really significant trigger. Or it sort of creates that perpetual cycle. So maybe something else was the trigger, but then you add an emotional issue on top of that, or you know, emotional sort of trigger around the condition, and then that perpetuates this sort of being stuck in this cell danger response.
I think about 90-something% of the population suffer insomnia at some point of their life. So lack of sleep is incredible. I mean, what time do you wake up this morning, Nick?
I woke up at 3:20 this morning.
3:20, and you got to remember it is June the something, middle of June. It would have been as black as the ace of spades.
Pitch black, yes. I had to drive 4 hours, so I had to leave early, left at 4:30.
So you could also add to that the interior of cars, especially new cars. You know, new car smell.
Yes, it's a chemical.
I've got a fairly new car now, so I'm sucking that in all day. It's great. And then on the fumes on the highway, loving it.
No, you need bounces into work.
Coming up the M1, you know, like I'm behind literally tens of thousands of cars.
That's true.
You know, and you know, they're all pumping out something.
I always put my air conditioner on recycle.
Do you?
Or always, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even for the long trips?
Yep.
Jeez.
You know, if it's all heat or cold, either or, but I always have it on recycle because I don't want any fumes, from the I've always done that. Even in the middle of winter, I will always have air conditioner or heating on just so I can recycle the air so I'm not sucking in the fumes from the highway.
I worry about the internal things of the car.
Well, I mean, what's the better of two evils, really? I guess you've got to choose, don't you?
But seriously, I mean, I don't know the answer to this, but which is the worst?
Yeah.
That's really interesting to see what...
Yeah.
I mean, which is better? There's got to be one that's better. Maybe the fresh is better if you're driving down the out and about.
Well, where I live, I don't worry about it too much.
No, you wouldn't. You're
lucky
beautiful.
to see a car.
But I live in frickin' the Gold Coast, which is people everywhere and all their smogs and fumes and
that stuff,
all their drugs and stuff down there.
Hello to everyone listening on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, hello. Well, come on. It's like the most common presentation to the hospital on the Gold Coast is what they call a PFO. A piston fell over. That's the most common presentation.
Is it really?
The most common.
Okay.
It's not like you think heart attacks or car accidents. No, it's a PFO.
Oh, there you go.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Kind of a bit
so anyone looking to move to the Gold Coast, maybe just do your research.
I know. And it's funny, like we've been looking at these papers about all this stuff and they're all published in Mitochondrion, which has something to do with the mitochondria, which is little DNA containing cells in our body. The mitochondria is where we make energy in our body.
Yes.
So we're starting to with that, but which means you know fatigue and all sorts of things. Can I say that?
You just did.
Oh, Jesus. I forget I'm on a podcast.
You do forget, Steve.
I've been doing this thing for 10 years.
We don't have a bleep button anymore. I
know. It's like, I normally don't swear that much.
No, you were swearing a bit before the podcast, Steve. You're on his soapbox before.
Yeah, well, we're all friends here, so I chat to you guys and then I come on, quick stage face on, you know, but yeah, let me rephrase that. These things, these stresses, these toxins, these bugs, these everything So I was going to say screw with, but they mess
they
with.
impact.
They impact. That's
They
very
impact
good.
our mitochondria.
So what's the mitochondria got
Yeah.
to do with all this?
So mitochondria has a very significant role in the cell danger response.
Yep.
So you obviously said mitochondria. We've talked about mitochondria before.
Oh.
I've got to slow my talk. I feel like I've been told I talk very fast, so I'm trying to slow down a little bit. It's just I get so passionate about talking.
Oh,
about
this
these
is
things.
fascinating, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I do talk fast too.
Yeah, maybe it's your fault, Steve. I'm just trying to keep up.
Yeah, you're trying to keep up with my yapping away.
Yeah. So mitochondria. So yeah, they're little organelles. They're in our cells. As you said, they're our little energy. They're like little batteries. So they just drive our energy center. So the mitochondria are what react in this cell danger response. So so when a danger or a trigger is detected, the mitochondria sort of flip into gear. So they will alter the cellular metabolism to shield the cell from further injury from whatever the trigger is. So they're trying to protect the cell.
Okay.
They downregulate it as a protective mechanism. So there's and then the process Dr. Naviaux describes so these are the steps that Dr. Naviaux describes as kind of the process of what happens.
There are steps in this. This is very interesting.
Yeah, so these are his steps. So I'm going to read through those. So the first step, so the mitochondria decrease their oxygen consumption to oxidize the cellular environment.
Yep.
Now this gets like lots of big words here, everybody. So sorry. So they inhibit the assembly of monometric building blocks into polymers, thus decreasing the efficiency of RNA, protein, and DNA synthesis by infecting pathogen or insult. So, lots of big words.
So I was going to say screw with, but they mess with the mitochondria, downregulate oxygen upstream, means what that translates is you get fatigued.
Yes.
So a lot of people who have this, probably the most poorly diagnosed thing is just fatigue.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people like you might be tired today. I didn't ask you how you are today.
No, I wish you're pretty good today.
Yeah. So
and for another reason, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, is why I'm feeling so good.
I'm feeling buzzed because I've got some old yippee-ki-yay in there, and I'm not joking. I'm feeling a bit wired today. I'm feeling a bit. I'm feeling like woo.
Yeah, I can tell, Steve. We can tell.
It's a product we used to have, so I'm not promoting it or anything but it's got saffron in it. It's got caffeines. It's got tyrosine, acetylcarnitine, Panax ginseng, all this stuff in it. So and caffeine and time release caffeine. I'm wired, which is good. I feel good. But so my mitochondria are wired. But if you've got this virus packed, you feel shit.
Yeah. Well, if you get a virus or you get some sort of infection, you get very tired and fatigued. So this is part of it. So the mitochondria are reacting. So that's the first step. And then the second thing that happens is the cell stiffens its membrane to limit further spread of pathogens. So the cells are very permeable.
Yes.
So they stiffen, and then that reduces that permeability. So it's protecting anything getting into the cell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay. So preventing things getting in the cell. That means obviously nutrients and oxygen.
Yeah.
So your cells are basically fatiguing down, and you can. And this is why you see people going to their GP, and I'm a typical example. And what's wrong? I'm just tired all the time. Yeah. Oh, well, we'll check your, let's say, a woman will check your iron and thyroid levels. And they go, oh, yeah, they're good. And you look at them and going, but why do I feel like this? And this could be it, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be it.
You could have this CDR without knowing it.
Yeah.
But how do you diagnose this? This is really short. We'll get to it a bit later on.
That, yeah.
But it's tricky.
It's really tricky. So they start to shut down, the cell becomes less permeable. Then the cell releases antiviral and antimicrobial chemicals to try to fight whatever the trigger is.
So this is part of your innate immune system.
Yeah.
The immune system you're born with, not specific.
That's right.
So we're talking about chemicals like inflammation, and it comes out. So you might get inflamed, which means you might get achy joints, and you might, as I said, I'm describing about half the people in our office here.
Yeah, that's right.
They come, hey, how are you today? Oh, I'm a bit tired. Why? I don't know, just tired, just not feeling it. Maybe I'm fine. And they say all this stuff. And they've probably got this.
Yeah, they could do, and this is like a normal process.
Yeah.
So the cell danger response isn't, and we'll get to the steps of the 3 steps of the cell danger response. But this is a normal process whenever there's a pathogen, a trigger, or something coming in.
Yep.
But and we'll talk about that it should just go through the 3 stages and then you move on, you get better. A lot of people don't. So cell releases antiviral and antimicrobial agents.
Yep.
And then the next step, you've got autophagy, mitochondrial fission, which is the mitochondrial split into 2,
yep.
and mitophagy increase, which is sort of that like eating up cells is autophagy, and then mitophagy is eating up mitochondria.
Mitochondria, yeah. Wow. So
well.
that takes a lot of energy just to do all that.
Yeah, and then you're reducing mitochondria, so that's important to remember. And then the next step, the changes take place in the DNA methylation.
Methylation is adding a methyl group, which is a CH3 group to certain things, which has massive effects in the body. Methylation is huge.
Super important to have the methylation. So basically, it won't go into all the big words there, SAMEs and all that sort of thing, but you're basically decreasing your methylation capacity.
Wow.
So slowing down methylation, which is another thing to keep that in mind, because it's very interesting, some of the sort of things that are pointed out in this that you see in clinic a lot, and you think, that could be because that cell danger response, they're stuck in that cell danger response. So the next step is...
sorry, just quickly on SAMI, just for those people, it's S-adenosine methionine, and I used to prescribe it for depression.
Yes.
So, and hypomethylation means you get high chemicals of homocysteine, which is dangerous for your blood vessels in your brain.
Yeah.
So this is pretty bad stuff you're describing.
Yeah, definitely. And then endogenous retroviruses are mobilized. So endogenous retroviruses, there are abundant sequences that persist within a human genome as remnants of ancient retroviral infections. So they're like kind of remnants of old viruses. And then they then become part of your immune system.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, in healthy individuals.
Yeah, now endogenous means from within the body.
Yeah.
So you've got these you activate these retroviruses that are in your body.
Yeah.
This is extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's more steps. Let's keep going.
There's more steps. The next step is that ATP is released from the cell as a warning to other cells that there's danger.
Yep.
So it's telling basically other cells, hey, something's going on. So then when ATP is outside the cell, it's called extracellular ATP.
As it would be.
As it would be. And then this process is known as purinergic signaling, which is important as well when we get to treatments remember that.
Yeah.
Purinergic signaling.
Purinergic symptoms. There is a drug for that. But we'll get to
There is a drug for that, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is, yeah.
It's an old drug.
It is an old drug, yes. And then the next one, the host behaviour alters. So activity, procreation, all that sort of thing stops because obviously there's something going on. So
you feel awful.
You do feel awful. So, so the mitochondria is doing all of those processes when there's this trigger comes in.
Yeah.
So, so there's a lot going on, and that's, why you feel so fatigued, you feel so awful. A lot of these processes that, to help us function are slowing down. So, and that's all for a reason, because the mitochondria are trying to protect the cells from this to prevent further damage and further, infection and whatever it is that the trigger is causing. And that whole process, Steve, you know what that is called?
Oh, what's the whole process called?
Inflammation.
Oh, my God.
That's essentially what inflammation is.
It is, yeah. I mean, all those chemicals are released. And so when you're inflamed, you feel crappy.
Yeah.
Also, it can lead to depression and mood disorders.
Yeah.
Inflammation, remember, it takes that tryptophan down the kynurenine pathway.
Yeah.
If you remember that from an old podcast from about 5 years ago, where we talked about, tryptophan being stolen. We used to call it tryptophan steal. And so people feel awful. They feel depressed. They feel... And again, this is really poorly mismanaged, because if someone's got just that subclinical inflammation, they haven't got rheumatoid arthritis through the roof or a severe bacterial infection, but that inflammation, high levels of CRP, which is a measure of inflammation, really screws with people's body. Actually, a family person in our family, CRP should be from 0 to 6. Hers went up to 300 and something. She had to be admitted to hospital. It's usually a severe bacterial infection. Yeah. So she was going through all this, absolute fatigue, couldn't do a thing, like almost disabled.
Yeah.
She's still not well.
Yeah.
So it's quite sad. And if you've got this going on, there's no ifs or buts about it. You feel awful.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that whole process obviously is creating inflammation.
Yep.
So what do we generally do when we first get sick or someone gets sick is we put all the antioxidants in there, all the anti-inflammatories to try to tame. But are we doing the wrong thing? Because the body's creating inflammation for a reason.
Yeah.
So we're trying to dampen it when the body's trying to create inflammation.
Yeah.
Which is can be the wrong thing. And I usually say to, I don't know, have a said too many people, but even after training, some people before or after training, if you do a heavy workout and they take their vitamin C or their vitamin D and all their antioxidants and all their stuff, well, you don't want to dampen your inflammation after you've had a workout because there's a reason you have inflammation.
Yeah.
So you want to hold off on having your antioxidants. As a little tip for anyone that's training.
Absolutely. It's funny because one of the treatments, or what post-training things people started taking about 10 years ago was arachidonic acid, a very inflammatory acid.
Very inflammatory. Yeah.
So, I mean, it was getting them benefit.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're feeling sick like this, people jump on the paracetamol or the Nurofen to reduce the inflammation, or aspirin in the olden days, because they felt sick, and you're dampening down inflammation. It could be a healing pathway.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And here's an example, another one, Dr. Naviaux from one of his papers.
Yep.
So this is an example of how the body is trying to increase inflammation. So vitamin D metabolism is significantly altered by the cell danger response.
Right.
So the mitochondrial P450 enzyme is required to activate the 25-hydroxy vitamin D to the hormonally active vitamin D.
125.
125.
One, yeah.
So when the cell danger response is triggered, another mitochondrial enzyme that inactivates vitamin D is increased. So it's actually shutting down that conversion to the active vitamin D, which is anti-inflammatory.
Right.
To stop that so that the inflammation can continue.
Carry on, yeah.
Yeah, so it's super interesting. So dealing with acute illness, the last thing you really want to do is adding a lot of antioxidants when your body's trying to go through these processes for a reason. This is another interesting thing that I thought was really cool. This is another interesting point from Dr. Naviaux's research about folate and B12 metabolism.
Oh, we're getting into that now.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. So the oxidizing environment triggered by the cell danger response creates a lot of oxidative stress, increases the ratio of formal tetrahydrofolate to methyl tetrahydrofolate.
Yep.
And the ratio of methylene tetrahydrofolate to methyl tetrahydrofolate. So it messes with the ratio.
Yep.
So the environment, the oxidative environment of the cell danger response, it ensures that the nucleotides will be used preferentially as, this is getting a bit into the science now, monomers for metabolic and signaling purposes rather than RNA and DNA synthesis.
Wow.
So, and I have seen it in clinic, people that respond really badly to folate and B12 with chronic conditions. They cannot tolerate this. I have an allergy to B12 or I have an allergy to B vitamins, I can't take them. Could this be that, again, they're in this cell danger response and they're stuck in this perpetual cycle of cell danger response? So the B12 and folate
can make them worse.
Metabolism is not working. Yeah, it makes them worse. So that's another I found that really interesting.
That is interesting.
It does make sense.
Because it rings bells. I always think of patients when they go on folate and they, and the proper folates and proper B12s, and most of them improve, but some of them don't, and some of them get worse.
Yeah.
And then they think it's an allergy or something to B vitamins. It can't be an allergy because your body needs them.
Well, I mean, it's B vitamins in food, so you'd have allergies in food as well.
Yeah, so, but this methylation process is all screwed up. And methylation, I mean, it regulates your hormones.
Oh, it's, I don't know if we talked about methylation. I'm sure there's been podcasts.
Catechol-methyltransferase, we've talked about that?
We talked about that. I don't know. The whole methylation, we could do one on methylation. It's a really interesting process, but vital for so many functions, neurotransmitters, hormones, detoxification, everything. So, it's messing with that methylation cycle, then it's going to be impacting you. So
you can't make SAMI, you can make more homocysteine, you get toxic brain, you get depressed. Jeez. And then the treatment for say depression is nothing to do with any of this stuff. It's an antidepressant. Yeah. Mostly. Yeah, mostly. You and I wouldn't, but and it's not really addressing the cause because it's not caused by a Prozac deficiency, is it? Right. It's caused by a methylation problem. So
that's right, yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier the 3 stages of the CDR.
Yeah.
Do you want to just outline what they are and what the 3 stages are so we can sort of nut it down for the listeners?
Yep, okay. So we've had the trigger. Yep. The mitochondria has responded. Yep. And then, we flip into this 3 stages of cell danger response. So stage 1, so that's when your innate immune system responds to the threat, the trigger, whatever it is, and it causes the endangered cells to lose their connection to healthy cells. So it sort of separates the endangered cells, the ones that are, under threat, to the ones that are healthy. So that's and creates like a shutdown, like a body shutdown essentially. And this, in the short term, an acute phase is what we want.
Absolutely.
It helps helps to stop the spread of the toxin or whatever the trigger is. So we really want this stage to happen.
Yeah.
So then when the cells begin to lose their connection, the mitochondria steps in with inflammatory response, as we said.
Yep.
So all those steps. And then the cells are put on defense. So then they kind of work together to contain all the damage. Oxygen levels drop.
Yep.
ATP changes, production changes, and down regulates to protect the body from additional damage. So kind of that first step is initially just like gathering forces, protecting the separating the sort of diseased, damaged cells that may be destroyed to keep as much of the healthy ones as possible. So that's the first stage.
It's sort of like just for the people who are listening, picture this: someone's got, say, gangrene in their foot, and they've got it spreading bacterial infection or whatever it is in their foot, and the doctor would amputate the foot. And that's what the body's doing to the cells. It's isolating the really bad cells from the good cells to contain the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like big fire, you shut the doors and just contain it. But, so that's the first step. All right, what about step number 2?
Okay, so CDR2, cell danger response 2 is it called?
Yep.
So once the threat's been recognised, contained and eliminated, so that trigger, whatever it is, the cells progress to stage 2.
Yep.
Stage 2 is known as the proliferative stage.
All right, so there's some sort of proliferation which is growth.
Going on.
Yep.
So what it's doing is restoring damaged cells.
Yep.
Or creating new cells. So if the cells have died, they have to be replaced. So they start to proliferate and create new cells because if we don't have a lot of cells, we're in trouble. So
exactly, we need cells. It's one thing we know.
Yeah. So this stage activates a process called aerobic glycolysis. And that's interesting because that assists the cell growth throughout the body, which is really interesting.
So aerobic means air and glycolysis means breakdown of sugars,
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And then the cellular connections need to be restored because they sort of pulled that connection apart.
Okay.
So once the damaged cells are repaired or there's new ones, then they start to, and they're fully functional again, they start to create that connection again. And I found this really interesting, and it was like, oh my God, I kind of this bit here is in this Dr. Naviaux's article was a little bit about a doctor called Dr. Otto Warburg.
From 1930, Nobel Prize winner.
Yes, 1931 Nobel Prize winner.
No, it was.
He would know that too.
No, because he was famous for the Warburg effect.
Is that
what you're going to talk about? I'll let you talk about it. All right,
well, you can talk about the Warburg effect because you know all about it.
I was talking to my mother this morning about the Warburg effect.
Oh, well, there you go.
Well,
you tell us about the Warburg.
My mother
It's literally in my outline.
Really?
Yeah.
I should have read your outline.
You should have. Wow, it's standard.
No, I've got the idea of it.
I'm joking.
But the funny thing is about the Warburg effect is that in 1930 he discovered that cancer cells only survive off blood sugar.
Yes.
And so this gave rise to the fact that, and I'll tell a story with my mother because it's a classic story, is unfortunately one of her friends, my mother is 81 and one of her friends is she's about 70. She's a bit younger, but she's 70.
Yeah.
So, and she's quite overweight, got severe diabetes, so high blood sugar levels. So she's obviously at a higher risk of cancer, and unfortunately she's developed pancreatic cancer. And unfortunately it's stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and there's only 4 stages. And her cancer is metastasizing rapidly through the lungs and the liver. It's very unfortunate. Of course, she's in hospital, and of course, she's getting chemo.
Yeah.
But because of her high blood sugar levels, she's got frank overt diabetes. And being overweight and all the unhealthy things, she got sugar floating everywhere. So unfortunately, she will probably succumb to the disease, unfortunately, because she's got stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which responds badly to chemo. And, I was saying to her, look, at her high blood sugar levels, and I said to my mum, look, high blood sugar. I didn't mention Otto Warburg up front, but I said, high blood sugar levels feed cancer cells. She goes, oh, really? And I went, oh, yeah, this guy called Warburg discovered it. And it was and that's where it gave rise to the low carbohydrate diets to treating cancer.
I've got a story. I'll cut your story off.
Go.
Mine's years and years ago, there was a couple that used to come in all the time, and they had they would come up from Tasmania because where I used to work was near the hospital, and they had a sick child, had cancer in hospital, and he went through and he went into remission, which was great, but he had to go back for checkups and things. But they'd take him out for ice cream and chocolate and things like that, and I'm like, the sugar. So the sugar in cancer is really really bad. So yeah, sorry, Steve, continue.
That's the story. Unfortunately, she's in Warburg effect.
Yeah. So the Warburg effect, obviously, aerobic glycolysis and proliferation, and what is cancer is proliferation of cells.
Yep.
So they just keep dividing them and multiplying. In this stage 2 of the cell danger response, we have aerobic glycolysis and proliferation of cells.
Yeah.
So could it be possibly, just theorising, or a contributing factor that someone gets stuck in this second phase, that they're dividing, they've got this glycolysis happening and they've this proliferation of these cells that just continuing to divide and grow and cause tumours. Could that be cancer? So, contributing to the cancer the cause of cancer, being stuck in this second phase of the cell danger response and unable for your body to move past it.
I think we're doing more than speculating, because there's a paper released about this, and certainly, and it's in Mitochondrion 2020 published. It's the reference I gave earlier.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So there is a list of diseases that come from CDR signalling, and I can't read them all out. We'll be here all day. One of them is cancers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's almost every single disease under the sun there that's linked to this.
Yeah.
Incredibly so, from asthma, ADHD, PTSD's in there, things I wouldn't have put in there. But,
there's so much.
But the types of cancer in adults are leukemia, lymphoma, thyroid, brain, breast, bladder, and other environmental cancer in adults. That's kind of all of them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's a lot. So the cancers. I found that really interesting. Like, when you put two together, we're talking about the cell danger response and how people can get stuck in it. Yep. So, and there's the different stages and whether you could get stuck. So I found that really interesting, because it's the exact same process.
Incredible.
So that's stage 2. Where they're starting to sort of regroup, rebuild the cells, population, that type of thing. And then you move into stage 3. Yeah. So then this is when the cells stop dividing, and they begin to establish their connections again with the neighbouring cells.
Good.
So then that sort of helps to reconnect all the body, the body systems like lymphatic system, nervous system. Yep. They restore their role in the metabolic and organ health. They regulate oxygen levels, and ATP levels are restored as well. So inflammation and immune system responses should return to normal. So this is when everything starts to calm down, and we go back to sort of that homeostasis again. So that's kind of the 3 steps. You get the trigger, the cells respond, they sort of pull, the diseased or the threatened cells away to protect a little bit. Then once the threat is over, they start to reconnect and reestablish everything, and then go back to homeostasis. So that's kind of what happens should happen in a healthy person. Yep. But in a lot of people, they can get stuck in any one of these stages, and then that is where this sort of chronic condition can have a perpetual cycle, and they cannot get out of it. They can't get past it, no matter what they're doing. This is a healthy. I'm going to hold this up to the camera for those who are watching. But this graph is a beautiful graph about what you've said, actually. And it's published in Mitochondrion 2023 by our mate. Yeah. And it is really important that you can see the cycle, and you can see that you want to be in the yellow cycle, the health cycle there. Yeah. But if you head off this direction, you want to keep going around back to health. You do, yeah. But you can get stuck in any of these. And the phase 1 just is, put it simply in a word, is inflammation. Phase 2 is proliferation. And phase 3 is differentiation. And any of these stuck things leads to chronic diseases, illness, and disorders. Yeah. So if you're stuck in any of these, you're in big trouble. You are. So that's a remarkable overview of what's going on. I haven't done it justice, but you've gone through all the things. But I mean, we're okay. This is bad news. Everyone's depressed now. So people are jumping off bridges. What do we do about it before they leap? What do we do? Is there a treatment for all this sort of stuff? Yeah, look, there is a treatment, and I think and at the start you said, how do we diagnose this sort of thing? Well, you can't. You can't. There's no test for it. If you had a parasite or something, bug maybe, but So there's not really. Obviously, naturopathically, we look for triggers. So when someone comes to us with symptoms, we match the symptoms, and then we look for the triggers. So And everyone obviously when they have this trigger, they go through this cell danger response, the body comes back to normal. So how do we treat this? Well, what do we do? So
what do you do?
And it can be very difficult to know what stage they're in, like what stage they're stuck in as well. And sometimes it can be a bit of trial and error to see whether they're going to what helps them improve or not.
Okay.
But the first thing you really want to do, of course, is remove the trigger. Identify and remove the trigger, because if you're trying to treat stage 2 and stage 3, the trigger's still there, you're never going to get anywhere.
Okay.
So, and it's like everything, right? In natural medicine, treat the root cause.
Yeah.
If it's mycotoxins, so mold illness, you've got to treat that, binders and detoxification and, lots of agents and things like that. They can help.
Has there been any pharmaceutical treatments for all this sort of stuff? Is there anything there that you think would be that people might be able to identify with?
Yeah, there is pharmaceutical treatments.
Okay,
definitely. So you want to phase one a treatment in phase 1. So there's phase 1, obviously
the inflammation phase. Yeah.
You want to remove the trigger, obviously. Right. So identify the trigger, whether it's a stealth infection, whether it's a toxin, heavy metal, but emotional stress. This is where I see, and this isn't in Dr. Naviaux's research, but I see in clinic this be a significant trigger or driver. Emotional, stress is huge, and we've talked about the severity of what emotional stress can do physiologically.
Yep.
So that's something that's a lot harder to treat, and a lot of people are kind of a little bit resistant to try to work on that.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's a big one. So look at the triggers. But yes, pharmaceutical treatments, there are some. So anticholinergic agents. So remember we talked about right back with the mitochondria, had that sort of cholinergic
so
sort of...
real nasty bugs there.
Yeah,
by parasites really, yeah.
Yeah. So they've identified that these pharmaceuticals have been successful in some certain conditions.
Certain conditions?
We're not going to talk about
we
one
can't
of them.
okay.
Bit of a touchy one. But Sumarin.
Sumarin, it's an old drug.
It is an old drug.
Do you know what they used that for originally?
When we say it?
Oh, well, no, I can say what it was originally used for. Can we say African sleeping sickness? Can we call that? Because that's being changed the name because it's racist or something. So we've got to that's the proper name of it. I don't know what the new name is.
I don't know.
But, that drug you talk about has been around for a century.
Yeah.
So isn't that amazing? Because the African sleep was people just so fatigued they'd sleep all the time.
Right.
And it was like a parasite, so they give them this drug that kills the parasite, and they not wake up, but they're relieved. Yeah. So that's a really good
trigger, haven't they? So they've then moved into stage 2 to stage 3.
Yeah.
So ADPR inhibitors, so antagonist of the second messenger ADP ribose is what that ADPR stands for. So some of the drugs are Plavix and tissue blue. Have you heard of tissue blue?
I have. It's an old drug from 1847, I think. But it's a good one. Yeah.
And some other pharmaceutical agents. So these have been studied in vitro animal studies. Ivermectin.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because ivermectin was one of the things they used in COVID.
Okay, you said it. Okay, good. Yeah,
We've done a COVID podcast now, so I think we're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, no, ivermectin is an antiparasitic and but it's very much...
which is interesting because people get stuck in that. So they're pharmaceutical options. So we have got some holistic treatments that we can look at as well because obviously we're all about holistic,
of course,
natural as much as we can. So when we're looking at cell danger response, we want to try and identify what stage they're in because that will dictate sort of what you do for each stage treatment wise. So stage 1 treatment, so we're looking at again anticholinergic agents but with natural ones.
Right.
So the ones below have been studied in vitro and animal studies. So Emidin, which is rhubarb or Japanese knotwood.
Knotwood, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So mentoflavone.
They're in ginkgos and St. John's wort.
Yeah. And then you can say the next one, Steve.
I don't know what it is.
Tetramethyl pyrazine.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Pyrazine.
Yep.
So it's in Lignostem,
like fermented.
Walachi, natto, fermented cocoa beans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy to get this stuff right.
I know. Well, some of it is.
St. John's wort ginkgo, Japanese knotwood, they're rhubarb. They're relatively pretty widely available. And then kudzu.
Kudzu, yeah.
Kudzu.
Nice.
So that's another one. So there's some anti-purinergic agents, natural ones.
Good.
And then the next ones, been found to have a little bit of an anti-purinergic effect as well, which is mustard oil, fenugreek.
I'm on fenugreek.
Are you? Oh,
yeah,
you are. I know what that's in.
Don't say it because we can't say the word, but it's very good for. I can tell you that fenugreek's very good for boosting testerone.
It is, yes.
There we go.
Right. It is.
Hopefully
also
people
good for
make that link.
No. And here's a really cool one because, this is another herb that we love, is Bakel skullcap.
Oh, I'm on that sometimes too.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. That is a really good herb.
I love that herb, yeah.
It's antihistamine, as you know.
It is,
but it also helps you sleep.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's really good for sleep.
Helps you rest.
It does help you rest.
I won't say the rest of that.
If you feel like relaxing or something, it's good.
Yeah, it's good for that too.
Yeah. So they can be used in stage 1 if you're sort of stuck in that stage 1 phase. And then you want to support, obviously, your digestive function, your gut, GI, or as like in anything.
Yeah.
Particularly, if there is sort of any imbalances and dysbiosis in the gut. So obviously maintain that balance of that microbiome. Liver and bile support is really important in anything because we want to open up those detox pathways.
Always.
Really, really important. And I think that's a lot of times where people really really clogged up and they've got these infections and they're starting to treat, and then maybe they might be killing off mycotoxins and things like that, but they can't eliminate them because their detox pathways are all clogged up, so they get sicker and sicker.
Wow.
So really important to support liver and then bile production and flow as well to make sure that's really good. Obviously making sure they have regular bowel movements, again, another elimination pathway. Having an anti-inflammatory diet in this stage. So, and then this is an interesting one, time-restricted eating. So,
wow.
Yeah, so that activates
comes into it.
autophagy.
Of course it does.
And switches off mTOR.
I didn't
so we
even
want to
think of
switch
that.
off mTOR.
Yeah, we don't want mTOR at this stage. We want mTOR when we go to the gym and
pathway.
You want to get as muscly as I do. You want mTOR,
Steve.
but
yeah, that's right. You're always in mTOR, Steve. No matter how muscly
always.
you are.
It's rippling, isn't it?
It is rippling. Yeah.
Rippling.
I know. Yeah.
So, I hope nobody's watching this because then they know I'm lying. If you're listening, I'm rippling a muscle. If you're watching, I apologise for lying.
Yeah. So that's another thing you can do in all the stages throughout the whole.
Yeah, didn't think of that.
Cycle. Yeah, and then we look at stage 2 and stage 3. So in stage 1, you don't want to be doing these treatments.
No.
But methylation support stage 2 and 3, stage 3.
Folinic acids. Yeah, of
so
course.
we want to then support that methylation cycle, whereas in stage 1 we don't. So obviously B12 folates, B2, B6, all those sorts of, we know those nutrients. Well, we should know those nutrients that help with the methylation.
What are your favourite forms of B12?
So I like methylcobalamin. No, I don't. Sorry, I like hydrocobalamin.
Because that can go two ways.
Yeah.
It's I can't really say the rest of that. It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So
pathway.
methylcobalamin, a lot of people can be quite sensitive to.
Yeah.
So, but I find the hydrocobalamin definitely I can use across the board, and you'll still people who have issues with methylation or they have the MTHFR polymorphism, or they don't, they do or they don't, they can have the hydrocobalamin. It works, so it's no problem. Just stay away from the cyanocobalamin. Yeah, because that's quite toxic and synthetic. So
it is, and it's funny because there was a famous guy, and I can't remember his name, I won't say his name, but he said, this has got cyanide in it, blah, 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 because it's got cyanocobalamin.
Yeah.
It's like cyanocobalamin is just B12. It's like, so B12 has cyanide in it, but cyanide is not the old thing that the old, tablets where you'd commit suicide.
No, that's right.
This is it's a different dose, different form, organic form. Cyanide is CN minus is the chemical thing, but it's not pure cyanide.
Yeah.
It's just, it's in a natural form that's actually quite healthy for you.
Yeah, it is. But if you have polymorphisms, the MTHFR, you may not do well with cyanocobalamin. So that's where the hydroxy or the methylcobalamins are better in that regard.
For sure.
So methylation support in phase 2 and phase 3.
Yep.
And I guess this is where a trial and error comes in. So if you're not sure where you're stuck in it or someone's stuck in it and you're giving methylation support and they don't react well, then maybe they're still stuck in stage 1. Maybe their body's still, maybe the trigger is still there. Maybe their body thinks the trigger is still there. So then you've got to go back and sort of readdress phase 1.
Yes.
Otherwise, methylation support and obviously mitochondrial support, stage 2 and 3, while the mitochondria are sort of like rebuilding.
What nutrients are we talking?
So CoQ10, acetyl-L-carnitine, taurine, I love taurine, D-ribose, and then nicotinamide riboside or NMN. So they're really important for the mitochondrial.
What do you think about lipoic acid for the mitochondria? You a fan?
Oh, look, I love lipoic acid. It's very highly anti-inflammatory. It's very good antioxidant. Lipoic acid is really good. I have had formulations with lipoic acid in them for mitochondrial support. Yeah, so that's a really
That's
good
right. I wanted to be it because it was not, in the 90s when we first learned about it, when I first learned about it, but it was an amazing thing. It gets into your brain and everything. It's great.
Yeah, it is great.
It's found in liver and potatoes and a few other natural things. So it's a natural substance. Yeah. Great for detoxifying heavy metals.
Yes, it is.
So it's a good all-rounder.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, so lipoic acid at that too. And then, again, only stage 2 and stage 3 anti-inflammatories.
All right.
Obviously, we want the inflammation.
You want the inflammation.
Stage 1. Yeah, so we don't want to quash it too early.
No.
When the body's trying to, do its thing. And we know there's so many. Where do
just
you go?
Run through them.
Curcumin, resveratrol. Ginkgo, Bakel skullcap is another one. Omega-3 is one of my favourites. Ginger, boswellia, magnesium, CBD. All those. Palmitoyl-amylide's another really good one.
That's a really that's found in eggs naturally, but you can get it as a supplement these days.
You can, it's really good for lots of different things. So
a doctor prescribed that to my mother-in-law.
Really?
Can you believe that?
I can't
believe
believe
medical
that.
doctor.
Wow, prescribed a natural supplement.
Well, not only that, it's a PEA one, which is like a really
it's next level one.
Yeah,
it's great. I use PEA quite a lot in clinic actually.
Do you?
Yeah.
Now, Nicole Brown naturopathy, they can Google you, and if you need to see a practitioner, Nick's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Yeah.
You look all right. You're booked out a bit in advance, but this is tricky stuff. You'd have to see a practitioner to get all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, people, I get a lot of people that have chronic conditions and they're just stuck. It can be a bit of a journey, a long journey, and to try and figure out exactly what it is. But anti-inflammatories, and then obviously cell membrane support in stage 2 and 3
what do you use
well.
for that?
So I use the phosphatidylcholine I use a lot, phosphatidylserine and fatty acids, so omega-3s.
Omega-3s
I use omega-3s for so many things.
You'd put it in the water supply, wouldn't you, omega-3?
I would put it in the water supply.
I
prescribe so much omega-3 because it just has so many amazing benefits, like so many, like obviously anti-inflammatory, cellular, cell membrane health, cardiovascular health, cognition, it's just so many things.
It's just good, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. I just love it. So I do use a lot, a very good quality one. If you're going to use omega-3s, and we've said this before in the podcast, get a very good quality one because it's come from the ocean. So it could have microplastics, heavy metals. So, you could actually create your own cell danger response if you have toxic omega-3s. So I really love that. And then antioxidants, so in stage 2 and stage 3. So I love glutathione.
Yes. We all love glutathione.
Yeah, I do use a bit of glutathione. I take glutathione every day, actually, but I do use glutathione quite a bit in clinic.
It's a tripeptide for those listening. It's made up of 3 amino acids, tripeptide, and it's made in the body, but it's an extraordinarily good agent, again, for detox and for anti-inflammatory, but also, for livers and it's all sorts of good stuff.
So many, and we burn through so quickly because we have so much oxidative stress in our bodies in the modern world, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes the liver can't keep up supply, so I do add in glutathione. Or N-acetylcysteine, so that's a precursor to glutathione, and that's also really good. I'm using that a lot more in clinic these days as well because it has so many other great actions as well.
It's a sulfur-based amino acid, so great for detoxing heavy metals.
Great for detox, really good. Really good for PCOS, really good for blood sugar issues, gut health, so many different things. So I'm really...
No, it's good for PCOS.
Yeah, it is quite good.
It's the second nutrient I've learned today.
Yeah. Also good for mental health.
Huh.
Yeah, good for anxiety.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah, it has a lot of really good benefits. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I never used to use a lot of it, but I'm using a lot more of it now because it covers so many bases.
Yeah.
You know, you're not having to give a lot of different supplements. So
Wow.
And then obviously A, C, and E for your antioxidant vitamins as well.
Obviously
I love vitamins. I mean, I take C, I take E. I do take a lot of stuff. Matt's just giggling in the back. I do take a lot of stuff. I do take a bit of stuff. I'm a naturopath. I just take the stuff.
Yeah.
But I do love vitamin E. I find the benefits of vitamin E amazing, good quality vitamin E.
Can I tell you a story about taking a lot of supplements? In the 90s, we used to work in Metagenics, or I used to work in Metagenics, and I would take a plastic cup, and this is, just graduated, so it's like, and Metagenics products were free, and they were still a good, and there was a cupboard of them.
Yeah.
And I'd just go there and I'd, get the ubiquinol, which CoQ10, and put you tip the bottle out, and they were 33 milligram caps, so quite low dose.
Yeah.
So you just tip like about half a dozen, into the cup, and then the next, the E's and the fish oils would be like a tip, and, you wouldn't just pick out one, you just tip.
Yes, I know, right?
Oh, it was nuts.
Yeah.
It was like, and the cup would fill up and you'd just be scoffing them throughout the day.
Naturopaths do that sort of stuff. Like we used to do it with the dispensary with all the liquid herbs. We'd just try and we'd just mix them all together.
I got a little bit drunk doing that once.
We did too. On our last day of college, and we had, it was the last day. So we had all the tinctures out. People like put out the buffet with all the alcohol and the drinks. We had just all the tinctures.
Oh my
and everyone was just
God.
downing different. And we were all like a bit off the tree by the end of the day. We shouldn't probably say that. We were very responsible. But
No, I got a bit fuzzy at a few stages there because I was just drinking it. When we were doing student clinic, by the way.
Yeah.
You get drunk while you were treating patients. A little bit.
We never got drunk treating patients.
Oh,
We're
no, I didn't get drunk.
professional.
But I used to drink the herbs and there was a bit of alcohol, 40, 50%
a lot of them
alcohol.
are very high in alcohol, but a small amount. But because it needs the alcohol to activate the actives. But anyway, yes, we digress. So I don't take loads of supplements, but
not anymore.
I'm getting older, so I try to support where I can.
I mean, I must admit, I'm pretty bad here because we've got a kitchen cabinet here.
When you have access to it, and as a naturopath, you have access to a lot of stuff. So, I like to try things to see what they do. But
I've got some yippee in there. That's why I'm a bit buzzy.
I know you are. You're a little bit off the tree, Steve.
I'm a little bit off the tree, but it's got magnesium, so that'll settle me down a bit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're balancing it out. Stimulants plus magnesium.
I just have one serve, so it's a half serve because you usually take 2 scoops of this stuff, yippee, if you wanted to. But it's so good for you.
Yeah, it is good for you. Anyway, we don't have it anymore, so.
No.
All right, so, and then you want to do some more, things for physical sort of physiologically or physical type treatments. So limbic retraining and vagal support, we've talked about this in the past, and you can do this in stage 1, 2 and 3.
Wow.
Limbic retraining is really good for people who are stuck in chronic conditions. And then obviously vagal support, so the vagus nerve, stimulating the vagus nerve to sort of help to, with that parasympathetic nervous system function and all that sort
We've
of
done
thing.
podcasts now. It's a big nerve that goes from your gut to your brain.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm not doing it justice, but
No,
go look at the podcast.
Go look at the podcast on that. So lymphatic system support, you can do that throughout the whole thing as well, because obviously lymphatic, if you don't have good lymphatic system, then you have a build-up of toxins as well, because that's another way your body gets rid of toxins. So lymphatic draining, obviously. Skin brushing and rebounding. Skin brushing, I don't know if I'm really on the skin brushing train. I don't know. Some people love it. I don't see a lot
My
of benefit.
father-in-law, who's a cosmetic doctor, loves skin brushing.
Oh, well, there you go. He'd probably know more than me in that regard. But I haven't had a great lot of experience or success, I suppose.
Closest I got to that was my wife scratching my back yesterday.
Okay.
Kind
of moving right along.
No, just scratch my back.
Rebounding, Steve, rebounding.
No, we're married, so we don't do anything else. We don't do any Netflix and chilling. And now I know what that means.
Now I know what that means too.
I honestly thought that was just watching Netflix and chilling. I didn't know.
Too. I did not know.
I didn't know it meant something.
No, it's the modern world. But anyway.
Modern world.
Yeah, so rebounding can be quite good for lymphatics as well. Obviously exercise as well, which stands to reason. And then there's some really good lymphatic herbs as well. So burdock, butcher's broom, gotu kola, one of my favourites. Clivers is another one. Cleavers, corn silk, celery seed, dandelion leaf, some really good ones for lymphatics.
Gotu kola
well.
I always use for the brain.
It's nature's Botox. Botox. So
now you tell me I'm 55.
I know.
It is good for that
it's
too.
really good
What else we got?
production.
Any physical activities we can do, like any other allied health professionals?
Yeah, so other allied health type treatments. So in all stages again, so osteopathy, chiropractic, sort of, because a lot of times it can be structural things as well. So structural imbalances or, can put your body under significant stress, physical stress. So if things are out of balance, it can impact your digestion, it can all sorts of things. So.
I'm in love with my chiropractor's hands. It's a she. And oh my goodness, it's changed my life. Because when all right, I did massage in the 90s, but we didn't do structural stuff like that.
Yeah.
We were taught to adjust people's spines.
I know. We had a person in our, it's a long time ago that I studied, so I'm sure they'd moved on a long time ago. They used to get people to lay on the ground and they'd walk on their back.
Yeah.
And crack, and I'm like, that does not look good to me.
Oh, we were taught.
Terrible.
We were allowed to adjust backs, but not necks.
Oh.
And it's like, you do these trauma, and I'm like, God, I don't do it these days, of course, and I haven't done that. Oh, actually, I do it to my wife, but no one else.
It doesn't matter if you hurt back. That's what you're saying.
It's just I've done it. I did it for ages, and then we were told not to. So it's like, okay, I won't, but I still did it for ages.
Yeah. I've had my neck adjusted a few times, and I don't want to do it again. It's freaky. So there you go. So there's some treatments for. Yep. So I guess the whole point of the podcast was, if you are somebody that is stuck in like a chronic disease cycle and you're trying lots of things and you can't get out of it, you could well be stuck in one of these stages of the cell danger response and your body just can't move past it. And you might need some help to sort of move that along and move into the stages and get your body to get back to homeostasis. So
and hopefully, this goes along with without saying, but make sure you sleep well.
Yes.
There's all these holistic things you can do to help yourself recover. But also remember, inflammation is not bad if it's short term.
That's right. Yeah.
Like when I had COVID, I felt like I had a temperature and I wasn't that sick.
Yeah.
But no way I took any, antipyretic agents, no aspirin and stuff, because it's like, I got to heal.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I got over it in a few days.
Yeah, that's what makes me not laugh, but, people with children, they have fevers and give them the children's Panadol straight away. Well, it's a fever for a reason.
It's not straight away. You monitor them. It gets too high. But it's
our body's a very intelligent organism, and I think we intervene too much sometimes when it's trying to just do its thing. So, obviously there's case by case situation. Don't
of course,
just avoid things just. Because you think you're in this cell danger response and you need to let your body go through it. Sometimes you need intervention, so don't not go see a doctor. But I think we do try to push things in a direction where the body doesn't want to go when it's trying to heal. Yeah. And that's where we've come into a lot of problems with chronic conditions. We're just, trying to do things the wrong way around. The body's very intelligent, so we don't give enough credit.
No, I think that's very important, and the body gives itself. Like I'm guilty of that. Like when I had COVID, I took some herbs, Andrographis and that, and just to get over it quicker. But I didn't take the drug Paxlovid because I thought, nah, it's all right, I'll get over it.
Yeah.
And I built up an immunity to it.
Yeah.
And it's good now, but I think I got the flirt strain.
You did get the... Oh, yeah, I think you probably got the flirt strain, apparently. Flirt
That's
strain
awesome,
the
isn't it?
newest strain, or was the newest strain. It's probably another one now.
Oh, yeah, it's been 2 weeks since then, so there'll be another strain out now. But that's good. What a fascinating podcast.
Yeah, I find it a really fascinating process.
Yeah.
And so, if you are struggling and you had an initial, infection or you had a mold infection, and molds are really common one. They just cannot get better. Yeah. You're stuck in this cell danger response. So.
There's a saying you got to watch out for when people say, I haven't been well since.
Yeah.
And they insert infection or injury or something like that, some stressor. Yeah. And that's what this is all about, I think.
Chronic fatigue is another really big one with this, the being stuck in the cell danger response as well.
Yeah,
and that's really common as
well. We
well.
could do a podcast on that till the cows come home.
We could, yeah.
But, we've run out of time today, so we better wrap it up. But thanks, Nic. It's been good.
Yeah, I thought so. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Let us know if you did or you didn't, or what you want to hear.
Don't let us know if you didn't.
Oh, no, don't let us know if you didn't. Just let us live in our
own
world of bliss. Yeah,
no. Any feedback's welcome.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Steve.
See you next week.